Hello, FPTA. Cindy Campbell here from International Parking and Mobility Institute. For those of you that I haven't met before, it's good to be with you. For those that I have met before, wish I could be with you in person, but I think until it's a little safer to travel, we're going to have to do it this way. I have the good fortune today of talking to you about developing workplace resilience, and I'll say that this is a pretty timely topic in our industry and in industries across the nation and across the world. You think about what we've all been dealing with for the last approximately year and how it has impacted and shaken up who we work with, how we work, where we work, how we perform our jobs. It's really impacted us quite a bit. And those impacts, those changes bring with it stress and anxiety, or they can. What I'm suggesting is our ability to be resilient is something that we can learn, something that we develop. And so I want to talk today about how we do that for you. Maybe you need a little extra resilience at work. Maybe you're stressing out a little too much. Let's see if we can't talk a little bit about the ways that you might be able to develop your own resilience to the things that you're encountering at work and in life in general. Here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be talking about individual values, your values, and how they affect your resilience. We're also going to be talking about the definition of workplace resilience, at least the way I'm defining it for this presentation. We'll talk about why it's important to have resilience, especially in today's society and everything that we're dealing with. We'll talk a little bit more about that, along with something called attitude anchors. This is a few steps simple steps that you can take to start to really develop your resilience. And I'll say this again in a little while, but resiliency, or being more resilient, is a learned activity. This isn't something you're innately born with. Now, some of us have been seeing it and resilient people and resilient actions since we were very young. Others of us, maybe not so much. It doesn't matter where you are in your career right now, you can become more resilient. And in fact, you can become healthier. I would even suggest that those of us that can be more resilient can expect, in general, to have a longer, healthier, happier life. So let's talk about the whole idea of your values and how they affect your resilience. I think before we talk about how we develop resilience, it's important that we first visit the concept around our personal and professional values. So if I were to ask you this question, and in fact I am, how would you define your values? What I'm asking here, what are the principles and qualities that you find to be intrinsically valuable or desirable in your life? What are they today? What were they when you started the job that you're in now? What's important? What are your values? When did you develop those values? As you're thinking about your values, and I've put some up on the screen here for you to look at as suggestions. Here's some of the most common values that you hear people talk about. These are the things that are important to us, right? I remember in my own life, my own personal life, thinking about my values as I approached work. And I remember when I was a young professional, I said things like, man, if I'm ever a boss, if I'm ever a manager, I'm never going to do that, or I'm always going to remember to do that. In my personal life, I said things like that about parenting. You know, I'd watch others and how they parented before I was a parent myself. And I'd say, I'm never going to do that. If I have kids, I'm never going to do that. Or I'm always going to do that. I'm going to make sure I do that. Those are our values. Some examples of the values, like I said, are on the screen. When we're determining what's important to us, what attributes have meaning to us, what mattered, we think about our life experience. Now, you and I can probably agree that if I asked each of you to list your values, or even take the values that you see on your screen right now and put them in order of importance to you, if there were 10 of us in the room, or 20 of us, or 30 of us in the room, the chance of all of us, or any of us, having the exact same list in the same order is really slight to none. Yet these things are all important to us, and chances are you could give us a whole lot more values that are important to you versus just the ones that I listed. When we continually neglect our values or set aside our core values because we get so busy in the tasks at hand and we get so defeated by the things that are happening, we're actually eroding our ability to maintain resilience. Think about that for a minute. When you set aside your values, your goals, your ideals, your principles, you're making yourself more vulnerable to anxiety and stress. We give up, in a sense. What we believe to be important doesn't cease to matter. We just send the message to others and display to others that what we believe in isn't necessarily all that important or has become less important. In turn, what that does is it breeds apathy, not only to others around you, but obviously to yourself. It can be insidious and it affects other areas of your life as well as other areas of those that are watching you not show your values when you're at work. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Granted, this is a recorded session. You can play it over or you can take a screenshot of the values that I've put up on the screen for you. But I'd like you to read over the values in the next day or two. It would be great if you could do it right after this session. And as you consider this list, which values have the most meaning for you? There is no one right answer or several right answers. It's whatever's important to you. I would love for you to write down what your values are now and think about what they were when you started your career. Are they different? Chances are they're not entirely different, but what is different? And think about what matters to you now in your life, in your work life. And here's the question I also want to ask you. When it comes to your values, when you think about it at work, do you have double standards? Do you hold others accountable for things that you stopped doing? Things that you no longer have been practicing? And if that's the case, first of all, you're not alone. And second of all, it's time to stop that, isn't it? If you're going to hold others accountable for being open or honest or having integrity or showing respect, it better start with you. Are you practicing what you preach? Are you displaying what you hold to be true for others? So let's talk then about resiliency and the definition of workplace resilience. Here's the definition I want to go by, at least for this presentation. Workplace resilience, you'll see on the screen, is the ability to cope and bounce back from the ups and downs and challenges that happen in a workplace setting. Seems fair enough. It includes the skills to manage anything from a tough workload, changing priorities, to dealing with frustrating colleagues. We've all been there. Why is that important? Well, I'm going to talk to you about your health and well-being for a second. Individuals with greater resilience are better able to manage the stress that they encounter, which is a risk factor. Stress and anxiety is a risk factor for conditions such as further anxiety or anxiety attacks or depression. It could be simple depression, event-related depression, or it could actually be something much deeper that can affect us in a lot of ways. And that you hear about this happening across the US with people all the time. When you think about the people that you work with, it is likely that in your own work experience, you have met or worked with people who could roll with anything that came their way, right? Nothing seems to rattle them. They encounter anxiety and stressful people and stressful situations, and they just never lose their cool. They adapt, they adjust, and they just keep moving. They probably have a pretty good work-life balance and maybe some interests outside of the office. They are not typically reactionary to the bad attitudes and stressful behaviors that others display. Is that you? Would you describe yourself that way? Are you the one keeping your cool when everybody around you is losing their mind? Or is it somebody else that you thought of as I started to describe that cool, level-headed person? Maybe it's not entirely you. Maybe you have your moments of that. But what I'm encouraging you to do is to make this a priority in your life. I'd like to share a story that comes to mind as I start to think about people who display a high level of stress and anxiety at work and how it affects others. Many years ago, I worked with a gentleman who had a nickname around campus. I worked at a university for over 30 years and encountered lots of different people in my work. Well, this one gentleman worked with events on campus. and he was an event manager of sorts, and he had a reputation to the various offices on campus of being just a complete ball of stress. And I'm going to make up a name here. Let's call him Bob. But I was talking to somebody on campus outside of my organization one time, and they wanted to know if Panic Bob was going to be working this event. And I knew the name Bob, but I didn't know what Panic Bob was. And I said, "Who's Panic Bob?" So we're the events manager. I said, "Why do you call him Panic Bob?" "Well, you know him," they said. Like he responds to everything stressfully. Everything is anxiety provoking, and he's always anxious, and he gets other people kind of anxious. And I started thinking about it as they were describing his tendencies, and I thought, yeah, that's true. Did I display that to Bob? I had to stop and think about that. Was he responding to maybe my anxiety level or others? Or was that just on him? Well, the answer is probably no one answer. I could have been instilling that in him, but I do realize that was his personality style. The truth is, nobody wants to be Panic Bob, and nobody wants to work with Panic Bob. So think about your own situations and how you've responded to coworkers, team members, others in the larger organization. Are you a panicky person when anxiety happens to you? Or do you know how to take a breath and set it aside? You can still handle it, still deal with it, but you're not going to be reactionary to it. If I'm fair, and I have to be and honest on this one, I was definitely more panicky or anxiety filled or provoked earlier in my career than I am now. I'd like to think that I'm better with it than I used to be, and I think I am generally, but there are still those situations where I can feel my anxiety and I have to catch myself and remember, breathe and think about what's happening and respond in a more controlled behavior, not just so that others see that, but so that I don't emotionally respond to it in a stressful way, and it keeps me healthier. Okay, so why should it matter to you? I've kind of explained why it mattered to me, and I gave you an example of Panic Bob. But let's look at the screen here. There is a real cost to our nation when we talk about lack of resilience in our organizations. In the United States alone, the annual total expenditures of work-related stress and poor mental health, as it says, including depression and anxiety, has been estimated at between 190 and 211 billion with a B dollars annually. That's a lot. As it says, the lack of resilience costs us. It costs us in health, in happiness, longevity, and financially. It also costs us in health. Let's talk a little more about the health part of it. Even more information and data comes from the American Heart Association on the importance of developing resilience. Building and maintaining resilience is more than just outwardly how we deal with it, as I've been talking about. It's also the effects of stress on our bodies and minds and how debilitating it can be. Take a look at what American Heart Association said. The U.S. workforce continues to experience a high burden of chronic conditions, including workplace stress and poor mental health. 2 out of every 3 employees, this is in the U.S., report work as a significant source of stress, and depressive illness affects 1 in 5 adults, again in the United States. Routine stress may be contributing to serious health problems, elevated risk for heart disease, stroke, and depression. These are all serious concerns. If you think about it, being human beings, which we are, we too often make the incorrect assumption that we have no ability to react differently to the stresses we encounter at work. There's a lot of stress in our workplace right now. Yours might be different than mine. 3 of us could sit down and have different stresses, but chances are we're going to have some of them that are the same, due especially to this pandemic. Some of them not. Even those few who haven't experienced a financial impact are exposed to a wide variety of stressors due to the pandemic and our changing world. While we can't necessarily have an impact on every situation we encounter, we can make certain choices every day about how we let the current situation we're dealing with impact our mood, our health, and our reaction to these stressors. In turn, it affects others. I've talked in other trainings before about ratcheting up a situation. If somebody comes at you and they're yelling and you yell back and they get a little louder, they ratchet it up and you play that game, what's happening with that level of anxiety? It's building on each other. So how do you stop that cycle? I'm suggesting by reacting in a less stressful way. It can help them potentially calm down. It's no guarantee, but it helps you to not respond from that flight or fright situation. Some of you that are watching this today have known me for a long time, maybe even just a short period of time. Some of you have known me for decades. I do like to think that I am someone that can usually deal with stress effectively, but not always, as I mentioned. What I will tell you is when I used to ratchet it up, when I used to respond emotionally or in a stressful manner, it was affecting my health. Some of you have heard my stories, and I won't go into them deeply here, but I will say, if you hadn't heard it before, stress was making me an unhealthy person. I had, I was borderline diabetic. I had high blood pressure. I was dealing with obesity. I had tension headaches. I had a full-blown ulcer. Now, your situation might be different, but I can tell you from my perspective and for me, those were all stress related. I am able to do something different now. I control that. I don't have those problems anymore because I changed how I live my life. Not entirely. I'm still me, but I don't interact with stress in the same way. I am a more resilient person because I have learned to deal with it. I didn't have that naturally growing up, and I was around people who didn't handle stress very well. So this has been a learning experience for me as an adult, and so I'm suggesting it can be for you too. Take a look at what I've got on the screen. When we're talking about becoming more resilient, we are better able to address the mistaken concept that we all have at times that we can't change the outcome, that we have no choice or ability except to just sway with whatever comes our way. And it's not true. Resilience isn't just about learning to cope with negative situations. It's about identifying ways to think, ways to help us move forward, to get unstuck, to not be stuck in places that are detrimental to our overall well-being, whether that's health or whether that's our professional success. I want to talk then about some ways that we can improve or begin to improve our resilience. Make no mistake, resilience is a learned behavior, as I've already said. It is not too late for any of us to learn ways to improve our resilience. So let me ask you another question then. When I talk about ways to develop resilience, both at work and in your personal life, what are the things that you want to work on first? You don't have to share this list with anybody, but is it personal? Is it professional? Is it both? Let's talk about the first three things that I think of as day-to-day strategies to improve your overall approach to resilience. This first one is thinking and coping strategies. When you think about things like what we frequently call mindfulness, how are you helping yourself to get through a stressful situation? When you can pay attention to your thinking and coping strategies, your reaction, you can help improve your judgment in stressful situations, your accuracy in decision-making, because it's not from a gut or an emotional perspective. You are a better professional and frankly, a less stressed person. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how you can get that mindfulness, at least a beginning of mindfulness, in just a few minutes. But let's go on to the second strategy here. It's lifestyle factors. Now, I told you about the stresses that I was dealing with. You'll see on the screen I've listed getting enough exercise, enough sleep, eating healthy. Those are the type of things that can impact and affect your thinking, your resilience. You may not have connected those before, but they are definitely connected. Are you working on very little sleep? Are you somebody that's still working from home even part of the time and you can't separate work and personal life? I'm going to tell you that's important to do. Some people say it's a fallacy of disconnecting work-life balance. I'm going to say that it's not. It's not entirely easy, but you can step away from work, completely, and it's, unless you're saving lives, I would say that it's okay to step away when you need to. This helps our resilience. So make sure you're gonna work on those lifestyle factors and that you're doing those things to keep yourself mentally and physically on track. I'll talk some more about that in a second. And lastly, of these three things, these overarching goals, let's talk about a strong support network outside of work. Okay, that can help you to support and contribute to your resiliency path, the skill set that you need for resilience. Now, it doesn't mean that you need to be friends with everybody at work, and frankly, maybe nobody at work if that's your choice. But it's important that you have a peer, a colleague, somebody within FPTA or somebody within IPMI that you can reach out to and have a conversation with. I had a call from a colleague who I will not name that needed to talk to me yesterday about something that he was encountering, and he just needed somebody outside of his organization to talk to that would understand within the industry what he was dealing with. And I did. And I have people I reach out to in those kind of situations too. Maybe you do too. If you don't, find one. If you need help finding one, call me. I'll either be that for you or I'll put you in touch with somebody that can help you in those situations. But it's important to have people that you can talk to about things that aren't strictly negative, somebody to bounce things off of. Is it important in your personal life? Absolutely. But make sure that you're not burdening or overburdening your loved ones, your personal friends and families with everything that you're dealing with at work. It's easy for us to do that. If you can limit the amount that you burden your family and friends with, it's better for them, certainly, and the relationship with you, and better for you in the long run. Keep it more pure. The loved ones are important for more things than burdening with your work concerns and issues. So then, there's also 9 habits of resilient people I want you to think about here. They're on the screen right now, but I do want to talk about them. It's important in most resilient people, these are some of the traits that I've read about in studies, they have developed strong, high-quality relationships. They separate those high-quality relationships, as I just got done talking about, between work life and home life. Again, some of them cross over, but generally speaking, it's 2 separate groups of people. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be, a social butterfly. Developing strong, high-quality relationships doesn't mean you're even in touch with these people continuously. A quality relationship, it can be few and far between, personal or professional, but find those people that are your people, your tribe, and make sure you don't ignore those relationships. Be that for them as well whenever you can. Also, becoming more self-aware. As I talked about earlier, sometimes we hold values to be true and we think, I want people to be accountable around me, and I want people to be honest, and I want them to do the right thing. Are you doing that? Are you that self-aware to know where your weaknesses are? Not everybody feels comfortable telling us what our weaknesses are, but there are some of those people, those high quality relationships that you have, that can maybe gently tell you where you need to be stronger, or bounce your thoughts off of them about how you want to improve and in what areas. Become more aware of what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are as it relates to your resilience especially. And then where you see the 3rd bullet, don't drink the drama Kool-Aid. Too often in an office setting, we get used to the drama piling on. It's the water cooler chat. It's the texting back and forth during a meeting. If you heard that right now, you know it happens, right? Even in our days now where we have Zoom meetings, you may have 20 people on a Zoom call or 10 people on a Zoom call. It's easy because this is a recording, so your secret's safe with me. But how many of you are having side conversations with others in that same Zoom meeting? And of those of you that said, yeah, I'm having those, how many of them are actually drama Kool-Aid? Oh my gosh, I can't believe she's bringing that up again. Yeah, how many times before we're going to hear that come up? Or I knew we'd go there again. Or oh boy, whatever it is, that's what I'm talking about. That's drama Kool-Aid. You can have remote work sites with drama Kool-Aid. You can have altogether work sites with drama Kool-Aid. Don't drink it. It is best for your health and the health of your organization and your reputation and who you are as a professional to stay out of that drama Kool-Aid mindset. I'll get off that soapbox now. Get rid of the victim mindset as well as part of that. If you feel like everybody's out to get you or everybody's trying to get ahead of you, stop and look at that. Now, there are some people whose motives aren't pure, but not everybody is out to get you. Try and make sure you understand you are not a victim. You decide how you will be treated and if you want to stay, if you don't feel like you're treated well. If you can get yourself in a more positive mind frame, you're a healthier, happier professional and person for it. Learn how to be present. Now, a lot of us don't like to necessarily be present. And I'm not just talking about physical presence. We disconnect from others. I am talking about disconnecting from those that will participate heavily in drama Kool-Aid. But for those that are just simply trying to get the job done, be present. Hear what others are saying. Don't let stressful situations that you've dealt with somebody else come into play with the next customer or the next coworker. Set it aside, learn how to be present, and put an effort toward your goals every day. Do you have goals? Have you set professional goals? Do you expect them to just happen? It's not the lottery. We don't just win. You got to play. What I mean by that is, are you putting effort into your goals? Are you setting setting goals and then actually trying to accomplish them? It can be little bites at a time, but you have to have goals. And then adopt a personal growth mindset. How are you getting ahead? You may be at the top of your organization, but if you're not still growing, if you're not still learning new things, you have ceased to be professional, because we never arrive. We're always learning new things. And I would suggest to you that adopting a personal growth mindset is important for all of us. Keep learning. Like this session today, like the other sessions that FPTA is bringing to you this week. What can you pick up? Just the little pearls. Maybe some of the things I'm saying you don't buy into or they aren't that meaningful. But is there something that can improve you? Is there something that can help you move towards your goals? Adopt that personal growth mindset, no matter how you find it. And then balance your work and life. Again, I talked about if you're working at home, you're working remotely, maybe it's difficult to balance it. Maybe it's easy, you're enjoying time with your family and suddenly you think about something you didn't get done or you were going to make a note to do. And so you just say, I'm just going to take 20 minutes and go in and do that. I'll be back soon. And an hour and a half later, you haven't emerged. Folks, it's time to find the balance. Even if you're not working remotely, you've gone back into the office or primarily gone back into the office. It's important to keep work at work and home at home as often as possible. I'm not saying it's a 100%, but the more often that you can do that and keep them separate, the better you are for your health and well-being, mentally and physically. And the last is make decisions and take action. So many of us make decisions about what we will do, our values, what we won't do, what our goals are. I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to start dieting. I'm going to start exercising. And so you make a commitment, you make a decision on what you want to accomplish and do. And unless you take action, it isn't happening. Nobody's doing it for you. There's that old analogy of you're walking down the street and there's a hole and you trip and fall into it. And you climb out of it. And you say, well, I'm not going to fall in that again. But you don't change anything. You don't change the path. You change nothing. And you keep falling into the hole. Folks, if you want to make decisions, you've got to take actions to make those decisions happen. Don't be inactive. Don't feel stifled or stymied by the stresses around you. Work through them, get through them, and find yourself on the other side. It's a much healthier place. There's another way that I want to suggest is an easy way or a beginning step in finding your resilience or finding more resilience for you. And it's something called attitude anchors. An attitude anchor is something that helps us to respond to the daily stresses we encounter that affect us. Life is always going to throw anxiety-provoking situations our way. So the question then becomes, how are we addressing them? There are two types of attitude anchors. Take a look at the screen. The attitude anchors are activities or actions that you can do to help maintain the positive attitude that you develop and that you display that you need to do your job successfully. The two types of anchors are maintenance anchors and repair anchors. Maintenance anchors, again, on your screen, you see it, they help you to maintain that positive attitude. It's eating lunch, doing things to maintain it, not just because stress has happened. Getting a good night's sleep, getting exercise, having some downtime, doing some deep breathing. We'll talk a little bit about some more examples of those in a minute. And then repair anchors. When it happens, when the bad stuff happens, how do you help yourself to bounce back from that bad mood, that bad encounter? Do you vent to a coworker, a friend, a trusted colleague? We can't overdo that, but we should, again, have somebody to do that with. Do you take a break, even if you can't take a quick one? Maybe it's you walk down the hall and you come back, but you're getting yourself away from the situation momentarily. Maybe it's just taking a few deep breaths because you don't have a minute to take a break. I've done that. I've talked to that issue in some of my training before about reset breathing or resetting thoughts. And it's nothing more than breath in, like through your nose, out through your mouth. You look down, breathe in, breathe out. And as you breathe out, you look up. It's a reset. It's just a mental thing. I've learned to do that over the years and it works. But you have to decide it works and then you have to practice it, okay? So maintenance anchors, again, the things that you do on a regular basis. Repair anchors, the things that you do when the bad stuff happens to get back to the good place. I'm going to challenge you to do this. And again, take a screenshot of this or watch this later and freeze this screen. But I want you to come up with a list of 5 things that you either do or could do that would be either a maintenance anchor for you or a repair anchor for you. If we were all together, I'd have you make this list. And if you were comfortable sharing it, I'd have you write it down and then we'd talk about it, because it's amazing what people in a larger group will come up with when we talk about these anchors. Since that isn't possible today, again, I'm going to ask you to do it on your own, but it's an important exercise. I would ask you to please look at these things to help you maintain a positive attitude and less stress in your life. I've given you one example of a maintenance anchor. It says eat lunch. Again, the good night's sleep, doing some exercise. In some of the classes that I've had, some of the other things that have come up, I wrote down. Here are some of the things that other people have come up with. Keep a regular bedtime, the best that I can. Exercise regularly. I go for a walk when I can, even if it's on a break, a 10-minute break. When I'm away from work, I spend time with loved ones, with people who matter to me, people who treat me well. I avoid negative people whenever possible. I schedule quiet time when I can, even if that's like a drive to or from work, or you go into a room, you take 5 minutes, you just give yourself a quiet time. Some people like journaling. I'll talk again about that in a minute. Or meditation. They do that breathing, as I've talked about. Again, meditation, that's a great one. Reading, participate in activities away from work. Right now, it's hard because we're not supposed to be gathering in large groups, but do you belong in good times to a bowling league or a book club or anything that you find great? I used to belong to, I live in wine country in California, and there's a ladies' wine appreciation group that I would attend on occasion, and I learned a lot about it, and it was something other than work that I would do. Repair anchors, remember, those are the things that you do when bad things happen. How do you regain your composure? How do you kick in your resiliency? It is things like venting again with a friend. You may hear some of these things on both lists, but you might approach them differently. Taking a break, again, going for a walk. I had some folks in a class talk. One lady said, listen, I soak in a bath. That's my thing. That's my downtime. I play music. I read a book. Again, take a few deep breaths, watch a movie or a TV show that makes you happy, maybe a comedy. Another person had said they pray. If you're a prayerful person, that's a great one. Talk to a friend or a trusted colleague. Again, time with loved ones. Take the time you need to reset. Now, I'm not saying that you can necessarily take a long break, but can you take a short one? Anything that helps you get there. You don't have to share this list with anybody else, but I do encourage you to create your list, because I'm going to ask you to look at your maintenance anchors and your repair anchors and start to practice them. Because remember what we said, I'm going to go back a second here. Make decisions and take action. This is one of the actions that I'm asking you to take. If you can't make these as your goals or actions to take, how exactly do you expect to change your level of resilience? Okay, think about that. Another option with resilience. If you're a journaling person, you like to write down things. If you've ever been in counseling, counselors will typically have you journal or make notes about what's happening, or when you felt stressful, what was going on. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have the time to do that or even the inclination to do that. But if you are someone who writes, there are apps out there, and you see these on the screen right now, that can help you with journaling. Reflectly is one of those. I have used Reflectly. I am not a big journaler, but I have found that if I just jot down a few things, it lets me sometimes just release that stress, getting rid of that anxiety. If that speaks to you, I encourage it. But let's say you just need an app that helps you to center and focus and maybe relax. Do a little deep breathing. Maybe it's some calming sounds, or somebody talking to you or talking you through a mindfulness approach. You see a bunch of apps on the screen that can help you. I have used a few of these. The ones that I like are Breathe, and I like Calm. I think they're both very popular, but I'm not recommending any of them. I'm just saying these are all out there. Jor is another journaling app. Headspace is great. 3-minute mindfulness. If you're in a hurry, it's a great one for you. There are free versions of these. There are paid versions. Certainly you get more out of the paid, but it doesn't have to be paid. Mindfulness app is another great one. Folks, find something that helps you to concentrate on your resilience. It's like exercising. When you first start exercising, you can't go out and run a 5K. When you first start doing weight lifting, you're trying to build muscle strength, and you can't go out and bench press a couple 100 pounds, can you? Same thing goes for building resilience. You're not going to have it overnight, but it starts with a decision to do it, a commitment to do something new. These apps can help you. If you want to find other apps, I'd always love to hear if you found one that's really special or works for you. I'd love to know that. But this is the way we start to practice. We start to do the exercise of learning to be more resilient. Now, we don't have a lot of time together today, and I want to leave you today, wrap this session up with a couple of different quotes that I think are pretty meaningful. At the beginning of the session, I talked about your values. I think this directly relates to that. And I think about that drama Kool-Aid that I talked about. The quote is from a guy named Jim Rohn, and he said this: "You are the average of the 5 people you spend most of your time with." My question to you is, you can't always choose who you're spending time with, but you can choose who you're reflecting. Are you reflecting people that you don't want to reflect? Are you that bad mood coming? Do people see you and go, "Oh man, here she comes. Here comes Cindy." Ugh. Who are you reflecting? You get to determine that. You may not determine, again, who you get to spend the most time with. We haven't picked our colleagues at work, have we? We pick some of our loved ones, not all of them, but we get to pick the people that we get to be like, the attitudes, the values that we want to reflect and that we want others to see in us. It changes your mental outlook when you can be that person. Are you somebody that you'd want to spend time with? Or are you somebody whose time you really don't want to have much of? That's a hard question to ask yourself. I say a goal to work towards is to be someone that others would want to spend time around because of your attitude. You don't, again, have to be the most social person in the room, but you want to be somebody who others want to emulate, that you display the values that others respect and admire. The last quote that I want to share with you from a guy on TV, but he said this and I thought, this is brilliant. This is Jon Stewart. If you've ever seen him on Comedy Central, he said, if you don't stick to your values when they're being tested, then they're really not values, are they? They're hobbies. Kind of true, isn't it? Again, do we have a double standard? Are you holding others accountable for the values that you hold to be true? Things that are important to you. Maybe it's time to make sure that we're embracing those values ourselves. So go back, look at that list of values, determine what a few of them are to you that are important, and then work those into how you're doing your job, what you're doing, how you're encountering others and interacting with others. It's that important. It's important to your well-being and the mindset and well-being of others around you. Hopefully that gets you started on the path towards a greater resilience in your work life and your personal life. Folks, I miss you all. I can't wait to be with you again. And hopefully sometime in 2021, I'll get to come to Florida and be with you all again. But until that time, I just want you to know my contact information is on the screen. I am here for you as a peer without cost. You want to give me a call, always happy to interact with my friends in the industry. My email is on there, my phone number's on there. And if you're crazy enough to want to connect with me on Facebook, we have some fun with some funny things that happen in this industry. You can join the fun. Enjoy the rest of the sessions that FPTA is bringing to you. And again, have a great week. I can't wait to see you in person. Take care, everybody.